to the Project Governance Group meeting. As you'll be aware, the chair is in isolation, so it's asked me to chair again on behalf of the Project Governance Group. Can I firstly just assure everybody that we are live streaming, and also welcome the media which are in attendance for the meeting. Are there any apologies? There being none, is there a notification for urgent or general business? Nothing to report under health and safety, Michael? No. Can we turn to the minutes?
Chair, just back to the general business and urgent business. I will move a motion that the latter part of our meeting, which is in publicly excluded, be brought back into public.
Thank you, Councillor. We'll note that, and we'll do so following the notification of the stuff that's on the publicly, we will add on the publicly excluded. We'll have a discussion about that.
Mr. Chair, the process would be that at the time you called for a motion to move into public excluded, you could have a debate on it. A motion to bring it forward is not required.
Right. Thank you. So we're happy we'll do it that way.
Yes. Sorry, Mr. Chair, I'm just looking for Richard Hardy because I was speaking to him last night and expecting him to be here. I'm surprised that he's not on Zoom yet.
We'll see that if he joins us. Sure. Can we then move to the minutes from the previous meeting? Are there any additions or alterations to the minutes as the draft form? Everybody happy? Would somebody like to move them as a true and correct record? Thank you.
Yeah, again, Chair, just as a point of clarification for the last meeting, at the last meeting, I gave an undertaking for some action that would lead into this meeting, and I just need to clarify that. I've been asked by some of my colleagues at the Chair's meeting yesterday to clarify this position. So at the
Nobby, once we've done the approval of the meetings, we'll do it under the actions. And
okay,
are you happy to do it then?
Yep, fine, thank you.
So we've got a mover, Councillor Scout, seconded by Councillor Soper. All those in favour?
Aye.
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 Carried.
Aye.
So matters arising. Nobby, can you?
Yep, thank you, Chair. At the end of the last meeting, I gave an undertaking that I would contact the Mayor and his partner. And so these are the dates and the actions that I've taken to afford the Mayor an opportunity to either give us feedback on the legacy report at a meeting or alternatively independent of a meeting where he can do it privately. So on the 23rd of April, I had contact with the Mayor and his partner by way of a telephone call. And during that, they asked me about the legacy report, which was pending. I advised them that it was available on board books and that it would be discussed at the following Wednesday meeting, which was the 26th. And that was a closed workshop. At that workshop on the 26th, the Mayor was absent. He was a late apology and did not attend and did not submit any written thoughts on what he wanted to present in relation to the legacy report. And then post that meeting on the 26th, I gave an undertaking that I'd make further contact with the Mayor and his partner, which I did. I emailed the Mayor and I also rang his partner as well to advise that we would extend a further period from the 26th through to the Sunday, the 1st of May, to allow the Mayor to give feedback as we valued his opinion and felt it was important that he contributed. The Mayor is not elected to do any feedback on that report, so it now sits silent in that area. And I think that's important because some of my colleagues are asking, have we afforded enough time or an appropriate opportunity for the Mayor to contribute? And I do now believe we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Look, that's my understanding, was that the reason for the legacy report to be publicly excluded initially was on that basis to give everybody an opportunity to provide feedback, and that has taken place. Okay. Can we move to the project Secretariat update? Jane.
Thank you, Jeff.
look, just briefly, I guess there's three purposes to this meeting. There's three things we'll be asking clear direction on, and they're all in bullet points there. But the key thing is probably the legacy report itself and whether the PGG are happy to recommend to council that they adopt it. And when we discuss it, we're open to any amendments that the group may have today, but it would be fair to say we feel it's been through due process, and we think that we've put every best effort to put together a report that tells it like it is. So we will, the council will debate that, or the PGG will get to that one. The second thing that the PGG would be asking council to do is send the report to the DIA, and finally they would be suggesting that the monitoring functions continue with risk and assurance. So I think that's the overall big picture of what we want to discuss today. We can go into more detail, but Mr. Chair, you might want to go to item 2, which was the issue on the PX session, having heard that there's a motion coming to take it in public.
Thanks very much, Jane. Can we just go through the rest of the report and then we'll come back to the legacy thing in terms of publicly excluded?
Rightio. So in section 3, the bullet points are all self-explanatory. Maybe if I focus on the second last one, because of the time frames, we need to write a covering report for council on your behalf. And there's 6 things there that I believe we need to cover in that report. And the last bullet point suggests, given the tight time frames, because this will need to go online on, I think it's Thursday, day after tomorrow, that the chair and the chief executive sign off this report on your behalf. The next section, do you want to pause for any comments, or I'll just keep going, shall I?
Look, just in that section under 6,
Yeah.
I just, from a discussion that both Lindsay and I have had, would there be some consideration that the role of the EA's tenure finish on the 31st of May, following the report being approved by council rather than the 30th of June?
The comment I would make,
I don't really see the need to hang around for another month.
Your confidence is appreciated, Mr. Chair.
Bruce looks like he's going to make a comment. He might do that.
Oh, sorry, no, I just look, Jeff, I agree with your optimism, and I think, and it is an affirmation. Jane, I'm, from my perspective, senior vice input, I would be comfortable if Jeff and Lindsay were released on the 31st of May. That's on the assumption, I think, that the report, as we've got it drafted, more or less goes through and is accepted by council.
That's correct, Bruce. I would have thought if the council was approving all the other aspects of the report, it would seem to me to be just a logical conclusion.
Well, I wish
I guess that'll be in council's hands. I'm going back to the early days when we said we'd take this through until the end of June, and reflecting back, and as we've moved through this year, there's what I'm observing to be a very nice gradual wind down. However, having said that, I don't sit in Invercargill, and it's up to the councillors themselves.
Thanks, Lindsay, and then Sir Tim.
Yeah, look, thanks, Chair and colleagues. I support our early exit. There are a number of reasons for that, and it is contingent on the report going through with DIA endorsement on the 24th. one of the reasons that I favour it is that we already are seeing candidacies announced for office around the council table, and I am concerned that the further on we go with time, the more drawn in, despite our best efforts, we will be into that pre-election interchange, and I think we should avoid that, because that was something that I think Thompson, among others, said we should be alert to.
Thanks. Sir Tim? Sir Tim, did you?
Yes, I just wanted to give notice that I'll be opposing the progress on this matter. It's got to go still before council.
That's correct. So Sir Tim, we'll deal with that when we get to dealing with the legacy report. Councillor Soper.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just going to say that I would agree with the external advisors that if your assessment is that the 31st of May is an appropriate time, and we have been very grateful for your role as external advisors, but as you say, I see no reason to prolong for another month what is indicated as the end of a very intensive exercise where you've contributed a great deal, and as you've indicated, or as Lindsay has indicated, there is a move into a different part of the council cycle. It would be a sensible date, I think, for the 31st of May, obviously with the proviso that the legacy report is accepted, but I'm confident that we're at that maturity point.
Thank you. So are there any other comments in regard to that? Can we, oh, sorry. Nobby? Got a hand
Yeah,
up.
just to reinforce what others are saying, I don't see as chair that where there's any benefit going forward. I think the biggest risk is the one that Lindsay's raised, that we have candidates now lining up to be mayor, and that's part of a normal cycle. And I think it's important for ratepayers to be able to see how those candidates and others behave leading up to the election without having the EAs, who have been referred to at times as trainer wheels, supporting the organisation. It's time for us to sort of stand up, and we know what needs to be done and how it needs to be done, and those that want to have a future in the council should also be mindful of that. So I'd be quite happy for the earlier exit.
Thank you.
For the record, Chair, I'm also in agreement of that.
Cheers. Thank you, Councillor Lewis. Scalp. Number 4 was the legacy report workshop, which is just effectively telling us the process in terms of that. Sorry, Richard?
Look, thank you. First of all, apologies for my lateness, but I'm here, so that's all good. And apologies for missing the first part of the discussion. But I just wanted to, one other thing we do need to consider, the elections, really good point, the upcoming elections, and making sure we steer clear of that. But if the EAs are going to end early, we need to think very carefully about just the media lines and getting the right sort of statements out there as to what is driving this and what it looks like moving forward. Just something to keep on our radar.
Thank you, Richard. Councillor Sober.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just on number 4, I just wanted to comment on paragraph 3 there. I think perhaps it doesn't quite capture the discussion, which was that I think the disappointment was that because one councillor hadn't completed the report, there could be a suspicion in the public's mind that it was any councillor. There was no identification, so I'm not sure that it was any disappointment that those of us who had filled out the report were being acknowledged. I think it was more that there could be a suspicion that any of us had been that one person, and that was unfortunate. So it was really expressed in that way. It was unfortunate that one councillor had chosen to decide on something that was not entirely collegial on this matter. It wasn't that any of us were seeking acknowledgement for having done it.
In fairness, most surveys never get more than 40%, so I thought it was a pretty good outcome, really. 5, Jane.
5 is a bit long and involved. There's the updates, as I've said, are shown in red, and quite a few things can be ticked off. given that we've got the legacy report done. Important to note that the residents survey will be continuing. We're recommending it continues on, but part of the concluding work of this group is that this reporting table gets a tidy up and goes to risk and assurance. And I think that's really important so that we keep the momentum going. So unless there's particular questions about anything, I think it stands for itself.
Any questions in regard to the updated version, which you'll note in red any changes? And the PGG agreed to the recommendation that they would now go to the audit and risk.
Yep. And then the budget update, nothing further to progress. We're still on target as projected to come under budget. The risks, we've had a really good look at this table this time and closed off the majority of the risks. There's 4 left there. In section 7, it tells you what they are. And again, they should become, it should be incorporated into the council's risk register rather than the organisation's risk register. And important to keep that top of mind too. Any questions on that one?
There appear to be none, Jane.
Okay, Lisa's written the comms update. I think she's there. I don't know if there's anything she wishes to add.
Lisa's here, and
nothing much to add really. It's been very quiet, as you can see there, and you've probably been following along. It does outdate very quickly, this update though, so there is always new things popping up.
thanks,
Number
Lisa. Any
9.
questions on the comms?
Sorry.
Number 9.
Number 9 is where we started. So that's suggesting that we need to, or the governance group needs to formalise a report to council, hopefully supporting, being happy to support the final legacy report. The next 2 are a letter to and from the DIA. Number 4, the PGG has done its job. Number 5 is the consequential monitoring role, which we've talked about already. And number 6, I've got the change date loud and clear. Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you. Any questions in terms of the 6 bullet points under project closure? Okay, on that basis...
Chair, you need to have those eyes on the side of your head again.
I've got a screen in front of me too now, and
You know, it's a bit of a worry. Just on the comment that Jane made in regard to PGG having done its job, I guess a warning for all of us around the table and those who are not present is that the report that we've got now, the impact survey report, does have some concerns within it. And I'm not attempting to troll through that, but it does have some areas of concern, and it does have some areas where we've got slippage between the previous impact report that was done and this current one. So I guess just alerting members that the PGG and its activity over quite a lengthy period now has not been a silver bullet that's solved everything. We still have some momentum to maintain. And given the period that we're coming up to now, pre-election, that will be a challenge in its own right.
noted. I think one of the other slight differences in terms of the impact report was that the impact report last time did include senior staff and the EAs. This one only include councillors. I thought the councillors are slightly harsher on themselves this time round, but I think that does slightly reflect in the report. This time round is on the basis that it was actually only councillors. Are there any other items under the public piece? Can we now move to...
Oh, Jeff, sorry, Jeff, I'm trying to... could I make a quick comment, please?
Yes, sorry, Bruce. Yes.
No worries, I didn't get my hand up in time. first, I just want to acknowledge that I agree with the proposal this comes to the Risk and Assurance Committee. But I hear your point, Jane, that it needs to be followed through with some seriousness. We do have one meeting between now and 30 June, and I'm just conscious in terms of thinking about the disestablishment of the PGG, which I broadly support, that there will only be one meeting of the RNA between now and 30 June, and some of the outcome measures, Jane, require action in June. It probably isn't of great moment. We will meet again later in the year, which I presume is not a bad time to be able to check that all the measures that are anticipated, the internal audit work, have been completed from the outcome perspective. All I'm trying to reflect here is that the RNA doesn't meet as regularly as the PGG has, and just to reflect that in terms of the resolution to disestablish the PGG now. Thank you.
Good point, Bruce, but I do assume that the Secretariat will continue its good work in between now and the next RNA meeting. And so that those matters will still be attended to prior to the next RNA.
I'd hope that's the case.
Look, there's nothing else under the public. Can we move to what is currently the publicly excluded part of the agenda for the project governance group? And intention was to move a publicly excluded session, but as already been discussed, it was intended that we move out of publicly excluded for a review of the legacy report. Councillor Clark.
Yes, I'd like to move a motion that we remain in open. And the rationale for that is that everybody internally who needs to have some input into the draft legacy report that we're now reviewing has had their opportunity. I think there's two pieces of work around this reporting. It's the legacy report itself, which is an overarching report, but important inside that is the impact survey governance research report that we've now got an open one. In fact, the latter of those two reports is the one that's the most detailed, because as you quite rightly said, it focuses on the feedback directly from elected members and nobody else. And we're a bit harsher on ourselves. So I think it's, if anything, you could have argued the other way around. And I think it's important that this now be out on the table so that the public can have a view of the work and the results that we've achieved. So my preference would be to have that, and I'll move accordingly.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councillor Soper. Any comments or questions?
Well,
I've got.
Sorry. Yep, Bruce.
Yeah, look, I'm probably of the view, Nobby, that I don't quite agree with your view. I think in terms of process here, the key is. So I'm getting feedback. Are you folk having trouble hearing me?
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Chair. If Councillor Clark could put his system on mute, I think you'll find that noise goes. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Look, all I'm wanting to reflect here without prolonging debate is I see this as the process we've followed through the workshop is enabling all of council to have a look at the report and comment. And I think really the role, as has been intended in the agenda, is for PGG to do its work, and I think it should be in PX so that it can release through a normal intended public process, which is going to occur next week, the consideration by the whole council, because it's a report on the whole council on themselves in public. So I would actually suggest that even though I don't suspect what I'm hearing, there's going to be a lot of debate over the report this morning, that it be in PX, but actually that it then be released publicly, because it's going to go out on Thursday anyway, for full consideration by council, because actually in the long run, the critical thing here is that council is happy with the report and they should have that chance to do it without it being done by us publicly here.
Sir Tim?
Yes, I do. I think it should be held in open, even though it'll be basically a celebrity roast of the mayor. I'm getting used to that by now. But I think going in, we should always try to be as open as possible and transparent as possible. And
Noted, Sir Tim.
I'll be speaking against any moves.
Thank you. So, sorry, Councillor Clark, put your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. Just in response to Bruce's views, and we normally agree on everything, but not this one, I'm afraid. As a democratic process and trying to allow members, elected members, to have suitable access prior to public release. It was my recall that we had a fairly high level of attendance at the workshop we had, which was in public excluded. We went over the legacy report. Nothing significantly changed in the legacy report other than the fact that the impact survey governance report is now on the table. And I don't understand why we have yet another meeting. One of the issues that concerns me is that if we go to a meeting on the 10th of May and it's released then, I suspect the media will want to have some ability to report on what happens at that final meeting. And when you read the full legacy report, including the impact survey governance research report, it is a very, very lengthy document. It goes historically back over a lot of stuff, and I'm not sure whether we want that to occur. It would be nice for them just to look at the more recent stuff to show where we're at now, as opposed to going back to the original reports that we had back that were triggered after the DIA. So I guess I'm still in favour of having this in open and give the media about a week to troll through the report and see what they see in there. So,
could I just comment? Look, I'm not going to oppose much further, Nobby, not because I want to agree with you necessarily. I just think in terms of process, it is for council as a whole to consider the full report and adopt it. I'm recommending that actually we release it after we have done our consideration today, just in case there's any particular matter that needs to be changed by either me and more particularly Jane. It then can be released. It's going to be public, as I understand it anyway, by Thursday. So that both council and indeed the media and the public have the chance to have a full consideration of it before Tuesday the 10th. So it's really just around process, but I'm not, Jeff, going to unduly uphold the motion if it's the view of the committee that we should do this in public now.
Cheers. Thanks, Bruce. Are there any further discussion?
Yes,
Sir Tim.
thank you, Mr. Chair. I feel that we've got to sheet this issue back to the Thompson report, and the issues that were raised there was the support for the mayor, and the report doesn't address this issue. I mean, why are there no questions such as, do you think the mayor has sufficient admin support? And have you witnessed any activities that show support for the mayor? Have you talked to the mayor about any issues he has raised? And I can understand why councillors refused to take part, or one councillor refused to take part in the survey because of privacy concerns. And when that survey was done, we were promised that it would be confidential. And that doesn't seem to have happened either.
Well, look, firstly, Sir Tim, so that we don't run into out of context in terms of the discussion, the discussion is really about whether the legacy report should be publicly excluded or not at this part of the process. I think there's an overwhelming support noting the words of the chair of the audit committee for it to be publicly released at this stage. I think that's the matter that we're discussing now. We will then discuss the legacy report post that decision. Councillor Soper.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Look, as the seconder of the motion, and as someone who's very interested in process, it just seems to me that it's entirely sensible at this stage to bring it into public. There is really, in the reasoning for which we put things into public excluded, I think we are at the point where we don't have the argument any longer to justifiably say section 48(1)(a) applies here, and I think it is entirely sensible that it comes into the public and that we have that discussion now. So I think it's a moot point. We could, as the chair of audit suggests, we could do it the other way, but I think it's part of the maturity point which we have reached in this exercise that it is time that this is public.
Thank you very much. And before the legacy report becomes bigger than Ben-Hur, we have a motion on the table moved by Councillor Clark and seconded by Councillor Soper. All those in favour of the motion?
Chair, I'd just like to make a further comment as the mover of the motion.
One more.
Yes,
Councillor.
I understand the one more, yes. Given that this is an open meeting live stream, I cannot allow the Mayor's comments to go unchallenged. It puts an inappropriate context into this work that we've done. So I just want to clarify two things. He raised the issue of one of his colleagues not completing the survey, and that was clearly not his worship. His worship did the survey. But I can categorically, hand on heart, say that the impact survey governance research report has been totally confidential. I've been at odds at times to sort of a little bit name and shame the councillor didn't complete the survey, and the feedback I've been having is it was a confidential survey and there will be no further disclosure. So I just wanted the public to know that. And the other issues that the Mayor raised was a series of issues that he raised, and I don't want to litigate through those. I just want to make the statement that certainly as Deputy Mayor, I've given a lot of time and effort in the last year and a half to try to resolve the issues that the Mayor has raised around bullying, around budget control, around PA hours, around cell phones and IT. On each occasion, the Mayor has defaulted from the support that was offered to him. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. So we have a motion on the floor and everybody's agreed.
Aye.
Those against?
No.
So Tim, that was a motion to put it into public, which I think you were supporting earlier in the meeting. So Tim, you're against putting the legacy report into public? So Tim? Would note then that Sir Tim has now chosen to not approve the report going into public. Is that correct, Sir Tim? Thank you. So on that basis, the majority have supported the report to go into public. So we will now move to the legacy report and look, as has been commented before, this report has gone through an extensive process, including the workshop. We've had a number of attempts to get it tidy, and I firstly just want to note both Jane and Bruce for the work that you have done. Jane especially with the tireless job of putting the pen to it, and on that basis I'm proposing that we go by page, and as the intention of the report was really brought about on the basis of saying, as a conclusion to the work that's been done, especially through the working groups in terms of the committees over a long period of time across a whole range of topics, that we should write a report that just concludes the process, and also in terms of the ability for the council to work through a whole range of things that were raised originally in the Thompson report. And I think that the report itself does reflect that. So on that basis, if you're happy, we'll move to the report itself on a page-by-page basis. Jane, you're happy to do it that way?
Absolutely, thank you.
Rightio. So we'll skip to the first one, which is contents and purpose page. So I'm going off the board books, diligent board. So we're on page 5, purpose 1. Are there any comments in regard to that page? Page 6, page 7, Page 8. Page 9 under scene setting. 10. 11. It's quite hard to watch just those in the room and Zoom at the same time, but if you put your hand up, I'll endeavour to catch it.
It's a male
11.
thing. It's simply a male thing.
12.
Councillor, really?
Absolutely.
13 under fixing the problem. 14. 15. 16. Page 17. 18. 19. 20. 21. 22.
Yeah, Chair, just to backtrack, I missed something there.
Sorry,
Bear with me.
I was going
Just-
slowly.
Not for me, you minute.
I was going to pass my report, Mobbin.
Yeah. I think when I was back on pages 16 and 17,
Jeepers, I'm slow then. Come on.
yeah, I know.
Okay, Councillor Clark, 16.
Yeah. I think this was something discussed at the last meeting about given this legacy document may be of interest to DIA and to other councils that are working potentially through similar problems, about, and it's probably not to be resolved here, but just to flag, I guess, that I gave feedback to Bruce and Jane when they did the interviews that I felt the last 18 months was a very lonely place for me as Deputy Mayor. I was sort of caught between tiptoeing around what I could realistically do as a Deputy Mayor in light of the mayoral situation, but then not wanting to go over the top of what my councillors might see as the appropriate role as well, and where would the boundaries be on that. And so the report doesn't disclose what could have happened in an ideal world. And I guess for a legacy document going forward, that's just a gap, I think, in the reporting. I'm not trying to add anything in at the stage, just probably signalling for Richard's benefit. That's still an area of, how could we have done that a little bit better? Yeah, I was in quite a lonely place for a long time.
Yeah, look, Councillor Clark, I think perfection is always a really hard thing to write.
Sure.
In terms of the report, I do,
Yep.
I see where you're coming from, but I do think that the report does reflect, and especially around this area, that these things are not simple and it's not a straight road. It does have some zigzags in it, and look, I think we understand from the perspective of the last 18 months that's the case. Right, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, which starts the learnings, 26. Oh, sorry, Lindsay.
Yeah, just timing's perfection, Chair. Just on page 26, gives me the opportunity to say two things. Firstly, to the authors, to congratulate them on the way in which they picked up the feedback from the workshops. And secondly, just to acknowledge the way in which you have recorded the contribution that Jeff and I have made to the work stream. I think we both would like to just recognise the appropriateness, I guess, of the way you've reflected our input and recorded it in the legacy report.
Noted. Thanks, Lindsay. 26, 27, 28, which starts what could have been done better.
Yeah, that's my area,
Yeah.
Jeff. I got a bit ahead of myself. That was the area that I thought, from a legacy perspective, there could have been more comments.
Yeah, look, I think the heading is probably the appropriate one under 10.2, what could have been done better.
Yep, and it's okay. I'm okay with the report being like it is.
29.
Mr.
No.
Chair,
Oh,
I
sorry.
I just want to comment because I had marked the learnings.
Yeah.
Just to say, I think this is a really important part of the document, and since you had announced page 29, I'll just point out the further learning opportunities paragraph on 29 does imply that this could be taken further with the DIA to progress the learnings and what could result that might assist other councils in the future, or indeed this council in some far future. So I think to that extent, Councillor Clark, I think what you've referred to has been captured there, and that there can be further discussion and progress on that particular learnings aspect.
Well, Councillor, so we had quite a discussion around this aspect at the last PGG, and it is correct. I think that we really came back to the point that at the end of the day, this report was what ICC did.
Yep.
It is the intention that it allows for other councils to probably reflect if they are in a similar position as to a process, but we then came back to a conclusion that it was really for the DIA to take up if there was a view within the department that there is a much more extensive writing that could be done in terms of process and things that may, because each council would be slightly different, and I think we came to the view, rightly so, that this is really for Invercargill City Council sign off, not a pendium that was telling other councils how they should do it. 2930. We had quite a lot of discussion also on this one. I think we landed in the right place in terms of additional appendixes to the report, and as I think quite rightly noted, the others are available on the website, ICC website, without loading a whole range of them. As there are a number of addendums there that we won't need to discuss, are there any other questions or comments in regard to the legacy report itself?
Jeff, could I just, without wanting to have undue focus on my report, it has changed a wee bit since the last meeting, given the comments I received. Could you just do a very short page turn on addendum 4?
Yep. I'm sorry. Get to it, Bruce. There's quite a bit to get to.
Yeah, sorry, mate. I don't want to get really focused, but I just reflect councillors that I think the PGG should have a chance just to make any comment, given it is the other one that has moved a wee bit since the council workshop. Not significantly, it's just really for comment, but I'd like to have know that there's no more changes needed.
All right, so if we could, somebody got a number?
86 of 91.
Good man. Righto. So the wrap-up review, as Bruce has pointed out, was also discussed at the workshop, but there have been a couple of additions since that point, Bruce, from the workshop.
Yeah, primarily calling it a review.
Yeah.
Dare I say it, rather than comments. Look, it has changed a wee bit, not significantly. Probably the primary feedback I had was on page 87, which was around the reasonable description of how the chairs group had existed prior to the working together. But I have used the word, it's reconfigured the way it's worked, which was the permanent inclusion of Claire as a member or as an attendee, I'm not quite certain how you call it, Claire, and the quick circulation of the notes. That was the critical thing. The other thing that has done, and it's not inconsistent, well, I don't know whether it's the same, but it's not inconsistent with also the fact that I've noted that we had one non-participant in the reviews. At that stage, that person was indisposed through health reasons. So I just wanted to note that. They were probably the two key changes that I've made. So I just pointed out.
Thank you. Any questions in regard to the comments from Bruce? There being none, it's my intention that we approve the report. Sorry, Councillor.
Yeah, this might be really nitpicky, but in case it's overlooked, page 53 of board books, there's the wrong use of the word "to." it has in the paragraph 52, the fourth to the bottom line of that, seen by the individuals I talk to, TOO. I think it should be TO. But that may have been transcribed somewhere along the line.
I think that's an appendix, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the editorial problem for Richard, I think.
I think it is.
Yeah.
That goes back
in
to
the
Richard
report, I
Thompson.
think.
We haven't.
They may have been transcribed.
change
I think
We'll tell him when we send him a copy of the final legacy report. We'll point.
Finally, after 18 months, we picked up Mr.
Yep.
Thompson.
Well, in actual fact, in the input report also, which is still in this part of the agenda since we transferred, page 24, or to page 7 of the impact report, I believe, there's an extra R at the end of the sentence.
We'll tell them to. Thank you.
Or debit their fees.
Yes.
We will do.
Well done.
Thank you.
So are there any other comments? Would somebody like to move that PGG accept the legacy report and the...
Just one other thing, Chair, if I may.
Sorry.
Frequently during these reports, we mentioned the charter. I know you just mentioned that there are other reports that we haven't included, of expediency perhaps. The charter, I believe, was a very important part of our process, and I wondered that the charter should be quoted verbatim as a report.
So, look, a good question. The charter has played quite a critical part, in my view, over the last 18 months since the council signed off. The question really is, should it be formally here rather than on the website? Any thoughts? Jane will be pleased to add one more in.
Yeah, I've got some views on that, Chair. We had some discussion about this issue and others at the last meeting.
Yeah.
I guess one of the issues that we have is that the charter in its own right is fine, but it does lead on to further debates which we may not want to be drawn into or to cloud this report. And the debate around that is we've got some members, elected members, who feel that there's a systemic problem within local government per se around how you lodge code of conduct complaints for people that are outside the charter and their behaviour. And I'm not sure that we'd want to extend the discussion into that area, certainly at election time.
So, Councillor Clark, I think though you're absolutely right. There's quite a broader debate that came from the work in terms of the issue of code of conduct processes, etc. And I think the charter's played an important part in dealing with that, and the council in the way they operate now. Really, Councillor Lewis is just raising the question as should it be as an appendix to the report rather than on the website.
I think it's a
role
part.
So the question is, does the committee agree that we should add one more appendix, which would be the charter, rather than having it on the website?
Mr. Chair, at the lengthy list of appendices that we decided weren't appropriate, this is probably the one.
Yeah.
That there is actually an argument it would be sensible, I think, as Councillor Lewis says, to put in. The other parts of the long list we agreed they're on the website, but this one, yes, was integral to the process, and yes, should be the one that's added.
So I've got a proposal that we do add one more appendix, which is the council charter. Is there any objection to that? There appears to be none. And so we'll do that with an amendment to the motion that we add one appendix.
I'll put that as a motion if you wish, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Soper. Does somebody like to
I would second that, Chair.
Second by Councillor Lewis. All of those in favour of the legacy report being accepted and sent to council, please say aye.
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 Those
Aye.
against? Carried. So we should note that it was carried unanimously, which I appreciate from the committee's perspective. And on that basis, thank everybody that has been involved. I think it's been a good process in terms of for the council and as part of the sign-off, but I also think It is useful in reply to the original letter from DIA that the council has chosen to formally respond at the end of the process. Are there any other matters?
Yeah, Chair, I just, as Chair of PG and an original member,
Well, it's a bit questionable.
just like to reflect and reinforce what you've just said, and in particular to thank Bruce and Jane for their work in the background and sometimes not in the background. I think if Jane hadn't kept up with the format that she constantly used, which was a thorn on our side at times, going back over and over and over those bloody things, I think we will easily have been sidetracked off into areas that we didn't need to be in, and we would have lost sight of some things that we subsequently now realise are quite important. So just like to thank you both for the work you've done.
Thanks very much.
Later.
And we, from a committee perspective, propose that. And on that basis, unless there are anything under general, I will intend to close the meeting. And thank you for your time. Cheers. Thank you guys that have zoomed in.
Bye.
We'll catch you
Thank
later.
you.